Have you ever walked away from something that could have changed your life because you just had a bad feeling? A relationship? A job opportunity? A new city? Maybe a conversation you never started? At the time, it felt like your intuition was protecting you. Weeks later, months later, it probably never crossed your mind, or it did, at least once, asking whether it was actually fear wearing your intuition's clothes. Here's one uncomfortable truth you should accept. Fear rarely introduces itself as fear. It doesn't walk into your mind and say, "Hi, I'm an old wound, and I'm about to ruin this opportunity for you." It sounds much more reasonable than that, more like, "Something feels off. I don't think I'm ready. Maybe this isn't the right time. I just don't trust them. I can't explain it. I just know." And sometimes, you might be right. That feeling is picking up on something your conscious mind hasn't fully processed yet. But sometimes also, your brain is doing something completely different. It's remembering. Your brain is constantly comparing what's happening now with what happened before. And that's what makes it so dangerous. Because if you've lived through enough disappointment, rejection, or emotional pain, your nervous system eventually stops asking, "Is this safe?" It starts asking, "Does this feel familiar?" Those are two very different questions. Today, we're going to explore why fear sounds so much like intuition and how to finally tell the difference. Imagine touching a hot stove as a child. You only need to learn that lesson once. The next time you see that stove, your body reacts before your mind has time to think. That's survival. Your brain is constantly looking for patterns. Not because it wants to make your life difficult, but because it wants to keep you alive. The problem is that emotional pain gets stored the same way too. If someone betrayed your trust, your brain remembers. If love became unpredictable, your brain remembers. If being yourself once led to rejection, your brain remembers. Years later, you meet someone genuinely kind. Instead of excitement, you feel uneasy. Not because they're dangerous, because they don't match the blueprint your nervous system learned. And here's the trap. We often mistake that discomfort for intuition. I just have a bad feeling. Maybe. But maybe your brain is confusing unfamiliar safety with familiar danger. This is why fear becomes so difficult to recognize. Because it rarely sounds irrational. It sounds responsible. Think about the last time you overthought a decision. Notice what your mind kept asking. What if this goes wrong? What if I embarrass myself? What if they leave? What if I fail? Fear is obsessed with certainty. It wants guarantees before you take the first step. But life doesn't work that way, and neither does intuition. Intuition rarely argues. It doesn't spend hours presenting evidence. It doesn't try to win a debate inside your head. It's surprisingly quiet. Sometimes it's just a gentle knowing, a subtle pull, not loud enough to overpower your fear, but steady enough that it never completely disappears. Fear says, "Don't move." Intuition says, "You already know." One demands control, the other asks for trust. The next time you feel a strong gut feeling, don't ask, "Is this intuition?" Ask something much more important. What is this feeling trying to protect me from? That single question changes everything. Maybe it's protecting you from rejection. Maybe from embarrassment. Maybe from failure. Maybe from feeling vulnerable. And none of those make you weak. They make you human. Fear developed for a reason. It probably protected you when you genuinely needed it. But protection can become a prison when the danger no longer exists. Your nervous system doesn't automatically know the war is over. Sometimes it still acts like every raised voice means abandonment. Every disagreement means rejection. Every opportunity means risk. And every unknown road means danger. So how do you know which voice deserves your trust? Here's something I've noticed. Fear hates waiting. It wants an answer. Now. Leave. Cancel. Run. Say no. Because urgency is one of its favorite disguises. But clarity usually survives time. When you give yourself space, Take a walk. Sleep on it. Breathe. Journal. The emotional noise begins to settle. Sometimes the fear disappears with it, and what's left behind is often much quieter. Not excitement, not panic, just a calm sense of direction. Almost like your mind has stopped shouting long enough for your deeper judgment to finally speak. If a feeling becomes clearer after your body calms down, pay attention. If it becomes louder the more anxious you become, pay attention to that too. Healing isn't learning to silence fear. Fear has a job. It's trying to protect you. The problem is, it can't tell the difference between the life you're living today and the life you survived yesterday. That's why growth often feels dangerous. Not because it is, but because it's unfamiliar. Maybe the relationship you've been avoiding, the opportunity you've been postponing, the dream you've been talking yourself out of, isn't being blocked by intuition. Maybe it's being filtered through an old survival strategy that doesn't realize you're no longer the person it was built to protect. The goal isn't to stop listening to your gut. It's to become so familiar with yourself, so much that you can recognize when fear borrows your voice. Because once you learn the difference, you stop asking, "What if everything goes wrong?" And you begin asking a far more interesting question. What if this is the first time I'm hearing myself instead of my past? Maybe that's what healing probably sounds like. Not certainty, not fearlessness, just enough quiet to finally hear your own truth